When Democrats were in power, they used lawfare, false accusations, and outrageous and childish interpretations of the law to target, jail, and deny the due process rights of conservatives, Trump supporters, and the president himself. Now the GOP is in charge, and their voters are asking them to restore the rule of law. They are also asking that those leftists who escaped prosecution under Democrats to be held accountable, whether those leftists be in Congress, on the bench, or the criminal element tied to powerful Democrats. Justice delayed is justice denied. That is my focus in today's preamble. To this day, only one person has served 6 months in jail for the Russia collusion hoax. Barack Obama and James Comey, they were the architects. They remain free. Even after crimes like lying to a FISA court judge 4 times, conclusions that said Comey and company's falsely predicated investigation was seriously flawed and had no basis in evidence, and subsequent wrongdoing by the FBI, like admitted evidence tampering and Inquisitor Jack Smith's team admitting it misled a court. No leftist has seen justice for their lawbreaking. Now we learn of a secret room at the FBI where Dan Bongino suggests key evidence was hidden away from the prying eyes of the public and investigators. The content of this room, Mr. Bongino says, will shock Americans. Meanwhile, one of the key figures in the Russia collusion hoax, Bruce Orr's wife, Nellie, according to FBI records, perjured herself, lied about President Trump, and in so doing, threw up roadblocks using the awesome power of the federal government to slow and stop the Trump agenda illegally. She's still free. And you'll all remember George Santos. He was accused of a crime of which he was eventually found guilty, but when he was only accused, the GOP voted not once, not twice, but 3 times to kick him out of Congress. Congressman Mike Lawler and his pals said it was imperative that this Republican be kicked out before he was given due process. Santos's seat has since been taken over by a Democrat as a result of left-leaning Republicans and their efforts. But how did left-wing Lawler and that caucus, the Republicans, who have so much more in common with leftists than us conservatives, how did they vote when Democrat Jamal Bowman admitted to a crime and was convicted? Oh, wait, there was no vote. Republicans in charge of the House made no moves to remove a Democrat convicted criminal. Now, what about an apples-to-apples comparison? Democrat Congresswoman LaMonica McIver has been indicted after video clearly shows her roughing up an ICE agent as she and her fellow illegal immigration cheerleaders stormed an ICE facility in New Jersey. Now, how did Congressman Mike Lawler, Don Bacon, or any of these other left-wing Republicans vote on removing her from Congress? Well, we don't know. You see, there has been no vote and likely won't be, because McIver is a Democrat, you see? If the America First coalition does convict her, I expect the GOP House will move heaven and earth to make sure she can vote on legislation from her jail cell. Even though Republicans will remove their own who are accused of crimes, they won't do the same to Democrats. You know, come to think of it, when the Democrats were in charge, the GOP said, well, we can't do anything because we don't set the agenda. When the GOP took over the House, Republicans claimed they couldn't do anything because they didn't have the Senate or the White House. Now, after we voters gave the GOP the House, the Senate, and the White House, they say, well, we can't do anything because we don't have a 60-vote threshold in the Senate. I'm sensing a pattern here, are you? Democrats never appear to be impeded at all when they are in partial or full control. That leads me to this. The GOP has not acted on lawless and unconstitutional judges, despite Congress's constitutional power and obligation to do so. Like the judges who recently pulled a ruling out of their rear ends claiming that President Trump, all of a sudden, folks, has no tariff authority. The press, seeming to be pulling for foreign nations to keep their unfair advantage over us, asked the press secretary Caroline Leavitt about this.
Why would other countries continue these trade deal negotiations given the rule?
Other countries around the world have faith in the negotiator-in-chief, President Donald J. Trump. And they also probably see how ridiculous this ruling is, and they understand that the administration is going to win, and we intend to win. We already filed an emergency appeal. We expect to fight this battle all the way to the Supreme Court. These other countries should also know, and they do know, that the president reserves other tariff authorities, Section 232, for example, to ensure that America's interests are being restored around the world. But I can confirm that our ambassador for trade, Jamieson Greer, already heard from countries around the world this morning who said they intend to continue with these negotiations.
Right, because perhaps those countries know our laws better than these judges do. Or perhaps those countries see the openly corrupt judicial tyranny will ultimately lose, and they will have to deal with President Trump for the next 4 years. They know they won't be able to run over Americans the way they did under Obama, Bush, and Biden. And that brings me full circle to the biggest scandal in U.S. history, the cover-up of Joe Biden's incapacity to perform his duties in the Oval Office. There is a push to get Dr. Jill Biden up to the Hill to testify about what she knew, and when she knew it, about Joe Biden's incapacity to fulfill the constitutional obligations of his office.
I think, frankly, the former First Lady should certainly speak up about what she saw in regards to her husband and when she saw it and what she knew, because I think anybody looking, again, at the videos and photo evidence of Joe Biden with your own eyes and a little bit of common sense can see this was a clear cover-up. And Jill Biden was certainly complicit in that cover-up. There's documentation, video evidence of her clearly shielding her husband away from the cameras. They were just on The View last week. She was saying everything is fine. She's still lying to the American people. She still thinks the American public are so stupid that they're going to believe her lies. And frankly, it's insulting, and she needs to answer for it.
Yeah, about that. As much as I'd like to see Jill Biden and Hunter Biden grilled about how they participated in the cover-up, what crime did they commit? A wife and a son lying about Joe Biden's mental health and his physical health? Yes, disgraceful, low down, and very Democrat. It's not illegal, though. It's not illegal for Jake Tapper, CNN, MSNBS, and the rest of the fake news press to lie and cover up for the Biden scandal. Sure, it signals we can never trust a word that comes out of their filthy mouths ever again, but it's not a crime. My worry here is that the dynamic we have seen for the last 3 decades will continue. When Democrats run things, they weaponize government, illegally harming conservatives and Republicans, and then get away with it. When the GOP gets power, despite overwhelming evidence of Democrat wrongdoing, they never hold those Democrats accountable. Is the GOP effort to bring Jill Biden to testify all an effort to get political tongues wagging on both sides, but take our eye off the ball from President Otto Penn and the leftists who did undemocratic things to prevent the will of the people from being realized? Will a Jill Biden grilling allow the GOP to do what it's always done? Allow Democrats to get away with illegal, treacherous, and what President Trump classifies as treasonous activities? I suppose time will tell. You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.